That's a pretty beautiful thought, isn't it? The idea that something we see, every single day, a bird just taking to the sky, is actually this incredible masterpiece of motion, like a sculpture that's just there for a second, carved right into the air.
Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to peel back the curtain on something you've probably seen 1,000 times, the simple flop of a bird's wings. But we're going to look at it through a very special lens, slow motion. And you'll see there's this whole hidden world of complexity and, honestly, art just waiting to be discovered.
I mean, think about it. A bird's movements they're way too fast for our eyes to really catch what's going on. We just see a blur, right? But we miss the absolute genius of the mechanics behind it all, the tiny little adjustments, the sheer power. It's all over before we can even process it. So what happens if we slow it all down? Let's find out.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get a grip on our main tool, which is slow motion. Then, we'll dive into the actual physics of flight. After that, we're going to look at the amazing variety of wing styles out there. We'll even see how this stuff inspires our own tech. And finally, we'll bring it all back home to this idea of flight as living, breathing art. Okay, let's kick things off. Section 1. So, how do we actually see these secrets that are hidden right in front of us? Well, the key is to slow everything down. The concept behind slow motion is actually pretty simple, but what it lets us see is absolutely mind-blowing. See, instead of capturing, say, 24 or 30 pictures or frames every second, what if we captured hundreds? When you play that back, you're essentially stretching out a single moment in time. A split second becomes this detailed, epic story that just unfolds right before your eyes. So, to put some numbers on it, check this out. If you shoot a video at a crazy high 960 frames per second, and then you play it back at a normal 30 frames per second, well, do the math. You get motion that is 32 times slower than real life. Something that happened in the blink of an eye is now several seconds of gorgeous, detailed movement. It lets us see every single part of that wing beat. All right, so we've got our super-powered slow motion lens. Now let's point it at the biggest challenge every single bird has to deal with. The one fundamental problem they all have to solve: gravity.
Okay, so for anything heavier than air to fly, a plane, a bird, whatever, it's got to generate two crucial forces. First, you need lift. That's the upward force that basically tells gravity, not today. Then you need thrust, which is the forward push that cuts through air resistance. Simple enough, right? But here's the real magic: how a bird manages to create both of these forces at the exact same time.
And this is where it gets so cool. This is how they do it. It all happens in the downstroke. The wing pushes down, but it also pushes back. Pushing the air down creates high pressure underneath the wing. Boom, you've got lift. But at the same time, because it's also pushing air backwards, you get thrust. It's a 2-for-1 deal. One single, powerful, elegant motion that solves both problems. I mean, how efficient is that? It's just a perfect example of nature's incredible design. But, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, of course not. Once you get the basics of lift and thrust, you can really start to appreciate just the sheer variety of ways that evolution has figured this out for different birds.
And what we find is that really size and lifestyle totally dictate how a bird flies. You've got your big birds, right? Eagles, hawks, they're the majestic gliders of the sky. They got these huge, broad wings made for catching air currents and just soaring, only using a powerful flap when they really have to. And then you have the little guys, like sparrows. They're the acrobats. They need that constant, super fast flapping to make those quick, darting movements.
Now, this is amazing. If we zoom way in on those smaller birds, thanks to slow motion, we see something incredible. Those feathers right at the tips of the wings, they're called the primary feathers. And get this, in Japanese, the word is kazekiri bane, which beautifully translates to wind-cutting feathers. And that's exactly what they do. They're not just one solid surface. The bird can control them individually, separating and angling them, just like fingers on a hand. This gives them this fine-tuned control over the air, which is how they get that breathtaking agility.
And honestly, birds are just absolute master pilots. They're adjusting constantly for every situation. For takeoff, you need a huge, powerful, full-body push to get as much lift as possible. Once they're cruising, the strokes get smaller, more efficient, just enough to keep their speed. Need to turn? It's just a tiny, subtle change in the angle of one wing. And landing? They spread their wings out wide, turning them into air brakes for a perfect, graceful stop. It's like watching a non-stop masterclass in aerodynamics. And then, you've got the total specialists. I'm talking about the hummingbird. When you see one hovering in slow motion, you realize they're not really flapping up and down at all. It's completely different. Their wings move back and forth horizontally in this kind of figure-8 pattern. They're almost like tiny helicopter rotors. It's not really flapping so much as it is this super high-speed stirring of the air, which lets them stay perfectly still.
So this is all incredibly cool to watch, right? But it's not just a beautiful curiosity. Understanding this biological marvel actually has some very, very real applications for us humans.
Yeah, this isn't just for science books. Engineers are looking at this stuff right now. You know that super quiet, super efficient hover the hummingbird does? Well, that's the direct inspiration for making drones that are stealthier and use way less battery power. And the way an eagle's feathers can flex to cut down on drag, that's literally shaping how the next generation of aircraft will be designed.
And you know, all this talk about science and high-tech, it kind of brings us right back to where we began, back to that simple sense of wonder. So hopefully the next time you see a bird in the air, you won't just see, an animal getting from point A to point B. You'll be witnessing this perfect marriage of biological engineering and natural art. It's literally millions of years of evolution all coming together to create a solution that's not just insanely efficient, but also just breathtakingly beautiful.
So, next time you look up, maybe you'll see it too. Not just a bird, but a true, living work of art. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible high-speed dances of nature are happening all around us every single day, just waiting for us to slow down for a second and actually take a look.